Okay, so good morning, and this session is going to cover the end of year and rollover functions, and also we'll cover the issues that have been raised with us about how a U3A might cope with variations to enrolments using or based on the COVID-19 environment. Where people might want to opt for discounted fees and whatever. So we made some changes to that. Both of these sessions were covered at the user group, but this session here is going to be a little bit slower, a little bit more detailed, and at the end we'll be able to take some specific questions that anybody might have. We do have a number of U3As that are dealing with a rollover for the first time. And so hence, it's not daunting. It's just a matter of just following the process. So Robin's going to lead us through the end of year and the rollover bit, and then I'll take a little bit, a few minutes, and work on the options that U3As are considering and how UMass might help you to do that. So I'll hand over to Robin. Oh, in a moment, Robin, I'm going to mute everybody and then you'll have to unmute yourself again. Go for it.
Okay.
Yours, Robin. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just share my screen and bring up the presentation. Sorry. Okay. Right, in this presentation, I'm concentrating on just the UMass functions associated with the end of year procedures, not the pre-planning that goes on beforehand, as I did in the original presentation. The aim of the rollover is simply to prepare the system and the membership and the courses for the upcoming year. Before the rollover, there are decisions which need to be made, and as I mentioned, these were covered in the user group meeting in September. The standard UMass procedures are that the courses for 2021 are set up, current ordinary members are made inactive, member types are adjusted, and I've repeated that line there, so you don't need that one. The date windows are adjusted so that members can see the 2021 courses and then not the current one, so there's less confusion. And enrolment in 2021 courses is enabled. The first thing you need to do in preparing before you start actually doing anything on UMass is, you need to do this on UMass too, but you need to look at a lot of the settings that you've had running from previous years. And on the View or Select Courses window, at the bottom of that window, you'll find a whole lot of buttons which you can use to check these things. So for instance, parent codes or categories, as some groups call them, which we'll deal with on the next slide. Class venues via list locations, and that might include now Zoom or online or whatever. In fact, you might have more than one Zoom license, so you might distinguish between those as you would distinguish between venues. Course types, and again with Zoom being widely used, you might decide to include that as a course type. And frequencies. A lot of those won't change from year to year, but some of them might, and it's a good idea to check them just to see if there are any there that you're not using or any more that you do need. Preparing the tutor list. Also at the bottom of that same screen, you'll find a button saying List Tutors. And if you click on that, it'll bring up the list of current tutors, and some of them you might decide are no longer current or will no longer be current next year. One thing to check for that often causes problems is to make sure that the show email column in there has a yes in it, which enables tutors to be able to contact their class members via email. So sometimes tutors complain that they can't, and that's usually the reason. Things like show email and show phone number, we tend not to use them simply because it's a matter of privacy. And if tutors really want that sort of detail shown to anybody else, they can include it in the course description. Any new tutors that aren't on there, you'll need to register. They might or might not already be members. If they're already members, you might need to change their member type so that it has the word tutor in it, or if you have some other way of labelling your tutors, such as leader or coordinator or conscriptor or whatever, it would have to have that word in the title. When you edit their record, they'll then automatically be inserted into the tutor table. And they may need access level 4, and in fact that is handled at the rollover. Anyone with designated as a tutor, whatever means, will be given access level 4. Okay, you need to decide on your 2021 courses, including venues and scheduling. So with the changes in COVID restrictions, you might find your venues will no longer hold as many people as they did before due to distancing requirements. And with new courses being slotted in, the scheduling of some of them might be changed. So you need all of that prepared before you even start. Reviewing parent codes or course categories, such as craft, history, outdoor, or online again. You might have decided that your categories are no longer suitable or need modification, and now's the time to do that before you start putting the courses in. You might want to review your course code protocol. You have a maximum of 8 characters to deal with, and what I've shown on the screen here is a reasonably standard format that some groups use, with the first 2 characters being the year. So next year will be 2021. The day of the week that the course is on. So 1 would represent Monday, and you don't need to necessarily use that. You can omit that completely. The description, which may or may not be similar to the parent codes. So you might have CRA for craft, for instance, or you might or LAN for language, but you might decide rather than use the parent code of language in there, you might put FRE for French, just to give it a bit more detail. The number is simply a number that distinguishes between any other 21 AAA courses. So it's not particularly significant, although it will affect the sorting order when you're listing the courses in core UMass. You don't have to use the full 8 characters. And if you decided to eliminate the day, for instance, you could put an extra letter in the description or whatever. You need to set up the holiday dates before you start on the courses as well. And in the View and Select Courses, there's a button for that under List Holiday Dates. If you click on that, you'll see a list of the previous dates that have been registered. And here there's 2018 ones because I've got this off the test system and we didn't update it. To create new ones for this year, you can simply edit the ones with a similar name from last year. So for here, I've clicked on the Labor Day one, and I've just changed the dates to this year's dates. That creates a new record. It doesn't change the existing ones. So you can go back later and delete the old ones if you wish, just to tidy up. You can designate them as public holidays or school holidays. And it doesn't really matter if you just call them all public holidays, if in your group, your practice is to treat all holidays as the same. If you want to distinguish between them, so if you observe school holidays but not public holidays or vice versa, it might be handy to designate the particular holidays as one or the other. So here I've got Labor Day as a public holiday. The term breaks, for instance, as I look it up here, we might call school holidays if they happen to coincide with that. Okay, entering the courses. There are 2 main methods. First, and the easiest one, is simply to copy courses which are continuing. So if something carries over from this year to next year, just copy the course with a click of a button, and you don't really need to do much more. I'll go into what you do need to do. And you can do the same thing if you have a course which is similar to an existing course, although not necessarily having the same name or whatever. And any new courses that haven't been there before, you will need to enter from scratch. Before you start, so that you can see what you're doing, you need to extend the admin date range till the end of 2021. And to do this, you'll need to use admin access for the master password. Ordinary members won't be able to see it, but at least you will be able to see it. So down here, I've got member date range, admin date range listing two, and I've changed it to the 31st of the 12th, 2021. So you'll be able to see all of 2021, but members down here will still only see the current year. Okay, to copy a current course from view and select courses, click on the course to be duplicated. So here we're going to duplicate how to make paper planes for beginners. And you simply click on either the code or the course. You don't click on edit, just the code or the course. That will take you to the course details screen where you'll find a copy button. That will take you to the screen where you can put in the new course code, which might simply be a matter of entering it as it was before, but with 21 instead of 20 in front of it. Or you might have decided to call it something different when you were doing your review earlier on. And the name is the same, although if you like, you can adjust it slightly. Maybe it's not beginners anymore, maybe it's intermediate. The start date should be the actual start date of the course. So if it starts on a Tuesday, you need a Tuesday date in for the start date. The finish date doesn't particularly matter, you can just put the end of the year. Once the record is saved, you can do any further editing if necessary, because you can only see these few fields here. If there's any other changes you need to make, and probably things like a description of what the course consists of might change from year to year. You might have a different textbook or something like that. Different tutor or different venue maybe. So all of those can be just done by editing the record. You then need to create the course calendar. So in the previous step, you created the range of dates that the course covers, but now we need to do the actual dates. And this is more important than it used to be because there are several functions now that use this information. So don't skip it, even if you used to do it before. So you do that by, on the course details page, this is the ones you've just created, edit the dates for the course. When you go to that screen, the first time you'll find that there are no dates set up, and it'll tell you so. And the most common one usually is to update with weekly class dates. But if yours is fortnightly or monthly, you might choose one of these other ones down here. If you don't continue classes during the holidays, you can then remove the dates, remove school holiday dates or public holiday dates or both. If you haven't set them up, the list holiday dates button will take you there if you didn't do that. The dates that are removed are the ones you originally set up a few steps back. You can also remove or add individual dates. Okay, if you stuffed it up, you can remove all dates and start again. Or create new dates will allow you to insert extra dates if there's something you want. Or just by clicking on the list, you can delete individual dates. New courses will just need to be done from scratch, and I haven't gone into any detail here. It's simply a matter of filling in all the details, and you've probably done this before. And you do that just by clicking on Add Courses from the main menu. Good idea there to check for any clashes that you might have. So when you're setting up courses, you might find that you've inadvertently put two classes into a venue at the same time. There are two buttons on the Reports Courses menu, a yearly timetable or a weekly timetable, which is actually more flexible than weekly. You can specify dates for it. And both of those in slightly different formats or show up anywhere you've got a clash. So for instance, here, I think I've used the yearly timetable, which shows that I've got 2 courses, one going from 9 till 11 and another one starting in the same room, that is the rabbit hole, which starts at 10, which is obviously before the previous class finishes, and it shows it as a clash. So it'll show up in red. So if you just whiz down the report, and it is quite a long report, if you just whiz down it, it'll show in red any time you've got a clash, so it's easy to spot. Okay, final preparation. You might need to prepare and publish a course booklet. Not everybody does this, and you might have a different method of publicising your courses, but there is a facility in UMass for doing it via reports, courses, and create a course booklet, which creates a Word document which is editable. So if you don't like the format, or you want a fancy front page or something like that, you can make any changes to that you need to make. And there are various options you can include or not include in the document, which you'll find if you go to the create course booklet screen. At this stage, now that all the courses are in, obviously you need to select and train people to assist with the enrolments or to run a help desk. And you need to stop members enrolling in the current courses at some stage, probably about now. Via system settings, options, course checkboxes and enrolments allowed, and removing the tick there. So if there's no tick there, it means that people won't be able to enrol in courses. They'll still be able to see them, but they won't be able to enrol. Okay, back to the course dates thing, so that the members can now see next year's courses. You need to extend the member date range listing to the end of 2021, and you might also want them to see this year's, so it's up to you whether you change the from date to the beginning of next year or leave it at the beginning of this year. That only affects the core UMass, so to do the same sort of thing for the actual members, you need, by the setting I'll put in here, adjust the start and end dates for UMass for members. So that's the API courses end date and start date. And that's the dates you should be using for that. And now you can turn the database offline. And the reason for that is you're going to be doing a bit of fiddling around now to adjust the subscriptions for, oh, sorry, beg your pardon, I have to go back one way. Subscription for next year. And this is an area where there's often a bit of fiddling around necessary, and I get more phone calls about this than anything else probably at rollover time. Here we have, you can create a new subscription. So here we've got one called 21 subs for next year. You don't need to put an amount in here because the amount is usually dependent on your member type. Okay, so the range there, we put it as the 19th of the 9th, well, in this case, presumably because we're going to be doing enrolments from the 19th of the 9th and finishing at the end of next year. To make sure that the subscription is showing and that the correct one is showing, if you go to the course listing screen again, you'll find that the subs, and log in as an inactive member, you'll find that the subs will appear above the course list. So here I've got 21 subs subscription for 2021. If it's still showing 2020, or if it's showing both 2020 and 2021, you might need to do a bit of fiddling with this system settings, options, course checkboxes, and it's called the number of enrolment calendar days in a year. And it's usually something like 300. You might need to do, sorry, I beg your pardon again. You might need to do a bit of fiddling around to get it to show the correct one. And quite a bit of fiddling around sometimes. Before you do the rollover, a good idea to generate the reports for the for the current year. So you want a list of the active members and the inactive members. There's an option on the reports menu to do those top two either as a CSV or just a report on the screen. Any report that appears on the screen, you can usually just scrape it into a spreadsheet and save it. So the CSV options on the menus will give you all the fields in those two files. And they're quite large files, whereas if you just copy it from the screen, you only get you know, a dozen or so fields, which isn't all of them. So that's up to you which you use for those two. Tutor not a member and member not a tutor. Again, there's no CSV for those, but you can copy them into a spreadsheet if you wish. That's a good idea to do so. And it will show up any anomalies in your tutors. So if you've got, for instance, people flagged as tutors who actually aren't, or people who are tutors, that is, they have a class, but they're not listed as tutors, it'll show those up. So you can decide if sometimes that might be perfectly legitimate. You might have you know, a life member or something who is a tutor. You could leave them as that as long as you know that that's the situation. List member security again shows you who's got level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever. It doesn't list the ones on 0 because it would be the rest of them. But you might need to reset them later on. For instance, when you do the rollover, it sets the tutors, all the tutors to level 4. And you might find then that office bearers can no longer get at what they need to get at because they've been lowered to level 4 because they're a tutor, whereas they actually need level 1. So you might need to keep track of that so that you can reset those after the rollover. Okay, we then come to the rollover. So in system settings, there's a tab called rollover, and you can run that. And after that, do a check to make sure that you haven't got any active members left. So if you run your active members report, it'll show whether that's worked or not. You also need to fix up the tutors. So by resetting all the tier 4 tutors back to 0, because some of your tutors might no longer be tutoring. And you can run update all members with this member type to a tutor. So and there might be more than one type because you might have, for instance, honorary tutors or member tutors or just plain tutors. And of course, as I mentioned before, they might be called something else. You might call yours leaders or whatever. So you might need to run that button several times. You need, if you decide that you only want members to enroll in, say, maximum of 5 courses at the initial enrolment time, there's a facility there to do that. And you need to update the subscription amounts for each member type. I haven't shown this here, I don't think. No, I haven't. So back on the course list screen, under the member type button, you can go into that and edit each record to change the subscriptions for each one. And I think Kevin's going to go into some detail about that too. I haven't actually done a demonstration of the rollover because it only involves basically 3 buttons, the rollover one and the two tutor adjustment ones. And I thought you'd probably seen enough slides by now anyway. So.
Well done, Robin. And if anybody's got any queries, you know who the guru is. And we do get queries at this time because it is an opportunity to go through, and I call it a spring cleanup. You know, and Robin talked about a tutor who might have been a tutor is no longer a tutor next year. This will identify those. But if there's somebody that you have that in the discrepancy list, you say, no, that's normal, I'm expecting that, then that's good as well. Let's have a look at the queries. The chats at the moment have been along the lines of the presentation, and I didn't mention at the beginning, we'll send the presentations out today with a link to the video. I'll also send out a list of the functions and steps. So a detailed list of every step that you need to consider. You may need to do anything about it, but you can at least have it as on your checklist to do. And Jeanette, I think Jeanette's here. I'm very, very grateful for her because she cleaned up my list that had been added to inappropriately or in a strange way over many years now. And Jeanette cleaned it all up. So I'm going to just go in and check that up, and I'll try and make it generic, but I also will indicate that, say, I'll use Whittlesey as an example. Whittlesey doesn't do this. So that gives you an idea of, well, you might want to do it. For example, early enrollments. Robin didn't mention early enrollments because those who generally do it generally are pretty familiar with the process. But you can allow members to enroll, certain members to enroll earlier than others. And there are some quite elaborate steps that you can take if you wish down that path. Let's have a look at the other questions here. Yep, presentation will be sent out to everybody. I found you ever changed the list. Karen, I found you have to change the tutor list as well as their enrolment page. Karen or Ferdy, I'm not sure what you mean there. I'll just give you what should happen with a tutor. If you have a tutor, whether it's a new or an old tutor, and you want to make a change or they want to make a change to their details, then it will automatically update the tutor list. Now, we've had a lot of work done on the way the tutor function works as a result of the integration of UMass for members. We've actually picked up along the way a couple of things that didn't work after that, and we did a mini update back a week or so ago. We've now found another one or two. Fairly minor issues. We're not rushing out with the fire brigade to put the hose on it. But you know, and no one else has picked it up, I don't think. But there's been a couple of things that have been picked up that we will probably do another mini release to do with tutors. But the principle is you make a tutor from their member details. Just let Graham in now. From their member details, you can, their member type, it's changed to be tutor, leader, convener, whatever you make it. If it is that tutor mechanism, once you've saved that member details, it will automatically update the tutor table. So there's no need to go and edit in the tutor table the email address or the member's name or their membership member number. Karen and Ferdy, does that sort of help you with your query? You're still muted, Karen.
Yeah,
muted.
I think I probably did it the other way around. I deleted the tutor from the tutor list, and then when we sent out an email to all the tutors, they still got an email because it still said that they were a tutor on their registration page. So I did it the wrong way round,
okay,
I think. If I'd have done the registration page first without taking them out of the tutor list, they probably wouldn't have still got the email.
Correct. The listing in the tutor table is there so that if a member is added to the tutor's course or withdrawn or goes on a wait list, then it'll send an email to the tutor using the email that's in their tutor list record. If the switch is turned on to say yes, they will receive that email. But if you're sending an email to them from the email to all tutors, it uses their individual email address in the tutor, in their member record. Because they're an ordinary member from that perspective, but a different member type of tutor. So you could send it to all associate members and it would go to select member type, associate, email address, send it out. The same equivalent. Okay, how does UMass cope with, oh, hang on, there's another one up above it. I'm missing, hang on, I'll just make sure I've got all the, let's have a look up here. Okay, So Jill's asked if will it delete a tutor if you change them back to an ordinary member? No, you do need to go back in and just remove them from that list, Jill. Yes. If UMass for members is active, you can't log in an active member to UMass core unless they have UMass level 0. Yes, if UMass, yes, exactly. UMass for members is, you don't have to be less than level 0 to log into UMass for members. You have to log in with your member password. So those who are administrators using an administrator password or master password, where I think is probably a better term these days, then the master password will not allow you to log into UMass for members.
I think what Jim was referring to was where I was mentioning testing to see if the subscription record was showing by logging in as an inactive member. Yes, his point is quite correct. You would need to log in as an inactive member who had a access of more than one, yeah, or more than 0
Right,
actually.
yes.
So someone with access 1 or above, which I obviously did when I tried it out, but I didn't realise that at the time. Yeah, so you wouldn't be able to test it using an inactive member with level 0 because it would take you to the UMass for members system where it wouldn't be showing.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah,
you need to be you're doing these you're doing these functions as a level 1 person to see that these things are all set up correctly for the member when they do their role or their function.
I'll change that on the slide before we send it out. Yes. Okay,
then thanks, Ron. How does UMass cope with venue clash of a hybrid course? So shared Zoom license and face-to-face. Yeah, you can only have one location per course. But I suppose if you were running I'm just thinking out loud here, if you were running a hybrid course, then you could create a location that says McDonald's/Zoom 1. So you could be running your course at McDonald's and you could have people running on Zoom. So you could have as many locations as you like, and you could be a bit creative in the way you create the location. Does that sound? Unusual situations. Yeah. The thinking behind creating the Zoom license as a location is that you can use the timetable to determine how often that Zoom license is used, or more importantly, does it clash with 2 classes that are going to use the same license? So that's where the timetable comes in, like Robin showed. Okay. Any other questions on that? And I'll move on to what we can do or what people have asked us for next year. I'll share my screen. Oops. Finally got there. Okay, so a number of U3As, and this started many months ago, there were U3As that were predicting that with the COVID virus and the lockdown and the social distancing and the discussions that they had with councils about venues and how many people can occupy a venue, we were starting to get queries about committees were discussing things like giving memberships a discounted membership for next year. In some cases, maybe just extending everything we're doing this year into next year. And we started to pull together some of those things, not from the point of view of discussing or telling a U3A how they should operate, but the U3A saying, look, this is what we think would be fair for a U3A. How does UMass cope with that? Or can UMass cope with that? Before we go and commit to an AGM and our membership, can we actually do it? Is it practical? So I've listed some of the things here, and there are some variants of these as well, and some of them are variants of each other. But some U3As are just going to literally roll over as normal. They're just going to adjust their subs. They may well just adjust their subs down for everybody next year. So anybody who enrolls, whether you're an active member this year or a new member next year, you just pay the same fee. That's one option. And I know U3As are doing that. We've got a number of other U3As that have said, we would like to offer a discounted fee for next year. So if you're an active member this year, we would like you to get a discounted fee. Another variation of that was, if you're an active member this year, maybe we can give you a discounted fee for part of next year. Okay, so different approach. Another one that we got was some are saying, well, look, let's offer almost free membership into all or part of next year. And then the last one that's a little bit more difficult and a bit more challenging is extend subscriptions from the end of 2020, which would be the normal subscription range, to sometime in 2021. So I'm going to go through and cater for, hopefully, each of those variants in a different way. And hopefully there's not too many others around, because I think that what we've come up with probably should suit all of the options that U3As have at least discussed with us. So the first one, standard rollover. Now, Robin's just been through that, so I'm not going to continue on. Standard rollover, do nothing different than what you would normally do in a rollover or end of year setup. And the next one is to look at providing discounted, and discounting could mean no fee for next year. So to do that, a couple of steps. Firstly, before we go into the next step, we need to create a new member type. So we go into our member types, and this is Robin actually mentioned this particular section here, and you create a new one, add a new member type. In my case here, I added member 2020. So member 20, whoops. So member 2020 is can be a category of an active member in 2020. And you can enter a fee. So if you've got let's say your normal fee for a new member is going to be $50 next year, and your committee has decided that we're going to offer members who were active members in 2020, we're going to offer them a discount of $10. So we'll make it $40 or $30 or $20, whatever it might be. You could actually make that zero. Once you've done that, then you go into, this requires master password access to do this. It's in an area that we don't recommend people, and even systems administrator, you access very often. So it's in an area where you need to be aware that once you're in miscellaneous, there's a whole lot of stuff that is being tested or is never been finished. But I can tell you that this particular function works. Still, nevertheless, once you're into the miscellaneous area, be careful. So in miscellaneous, go to globally replace a member type. Now we have a query that's been modified in there. There was an existing query from the beginning, and we now are going to change our member type. There's currently members called member. We're going to change it to member 2020. And we're only going to do active members to achieve what our outcome is here. You can see that you could do inactive, or you could do them all. And we're not promoting that at the moment. So active members for 2020, change all their member types. And of course, if you're going to do a rollover, then before you do the rollover, this has to be done before the rollover. So you would change those members. They would then have a member type of 2020. And then at enrollment, those members pay a discounted fee or the zero when they re-enroll and pay their subscriptions. So that's relatively straightforward. Any new member under those circumstances would be classified as, in this particular case, just classified as member. and they would pay the normal subscription or whatever you have agreed as the subscription rate. Another option here is to extend subscriptions and enrolments from this year into next year and retain class enrolments. Now, this is a lot more work. And if you can get away with just doing the previous discounted fee, then good. But the principle here is an active member this year will remain active into 2021 with a nominated expiry date, subs expiry date, and most likely it's going to be the end of 2021, 31st of December 2021. Now, if you want to continue to keep all your class enrolments, then you have to still manually go and extend the class enrolment date. Let's say it was the class finished on the 6th of December 2020. You would need to manually extend that class date out to the end of whatever, next year, 6th of December 2021. Bit of work, but that has to be done manually. You need to adjust the reports and subscriptions and member types. So you need to accommodate that any new member that joins has to have a subscription as per Robin's talk this morning. You might need to look at the member types and the subscription fee for new members. It may not change, so you can leave it alone. In this particular case, you wouldn't roll over your members. So you're extending your current membership into the end of next year. No rollover, because if you roll over, by definition, they become inactive. So you would keep them active, and then you can continue to roll over, add new members as you go. Okay, so I'm going to look at this slide, the next slide, and then I'm going to look at how you actually do that. I've also got a little beware at the bottom here. A lot of the cleanup functions that Robin talked about in her presentation still need to be done to make sure that if a tutor is a tutor and going to continue on, there'll be some classes that will not continue on. There'll be some tutors who don't want to continue on next year. That's the normal process. And then there'll be some new ones maybe that you add new classes. You still need to go through some of that process to clean up all those sorts of functions. A variation of that is that we would extend the subscriptions, but we wouldn't extend the course enrolments. So in that case, then the previous option is applicable. Members would still enroll in courses for next year as normal. So you have to build your new courses. You need to make them available with maybe a spare space for extra people, or adjust the numbers and the course dates for those courses. Similar to the normal enrolment, you would take the system offline to show 2020 classes, because you want to actually usually you give options for members to view, or potential members to view classes for the following year, and then you open up for enrolment so that the enrolments are fair for everybody. That's sort of a standard enrolment process. So you turn on the enrolments at the enrolment day as per the normal enrolment, and you set up the subscriptions fees as your committee has approved. I'm going to look into how you do that. So in miscellaneous again, there's a function that we've modified that will reset the member expiry date. So in our particular case, to achieve this end result here, we would need to reset active 2020 members and extend the expiry date. As I mentioned before, it may well be the 31st of December 2021. The report has been enhanced so that we've now got active, inactive, and all. In this particular case, you're going to select active. Okay, now my recommendation is that that in the choose a subscription, you choose any. It's been tested and we worked it out. It becomes much more difficult if you're trying to choose a subscription date depending on the date range and how many days in the year, and the algorithm that works out whether that 330 should be 340 or 300. Those that have seen the back end systems admin function, is that you just lose that as any, and then change the member expiry date. Now, we've done some reasonably thorough testing in this, but of course we've not done it in real life on a real life system, but we're fairly confident, we are confident it will work. Smile. I just wanted to, I'll close off here now and then we'll open up for discussion, but I just want to actually mention that in your UMass for members, and 31 or 32 of our 40 U3As are currently using UMass for members, you've got a lot more flexibility in being able to display course settings. And for next year, you can consider things like your location. How do you want to actually, and Robin talked about, maybe you want to put a Zoom license in a location. You've got course types. Do you want to put in Zoom into the course type? You've got a long description you can put into a course type that could be something like, this is a Zoom course that runs all year, including school holidays. So that it's just described for the member that this runs all through school holidays. That's an option. Of course, you've got your course code and you've got a time span. So you can actually now allocate terms or semesters according to how you want to build them up. And then they would come up in this time span here as an option for a member to be able to filter. So there's a lot of flexibility in here, and it's worthwhile whenever you get the chance to show your members how they can actually find courses by, for example, changing the timetable. It might be next year's timetable that you want to actually show them, or have set up by default in the core UMass. But you can also untick finished courses or closed courses, and they could actually see them. You might change the sort options, and of course you've got your categories as well. So that's where I have got to today. Now I'm going to stop sharing and just have a look at the chat session, chat notes. Okay. Okay, so Cheryl's asked about, Cheryl and James have asked about what happens if you don't actually have an enrolment day or enrolment time or face-to-face enrolments, and there's very few people, I would imagine, that are going to be able to offer face-to-face. Online enrolments is going to take a new shape this year, because that's probably going to be the majority of enrolments will need to be done online. Certainly from Whittlesley's point of view, we're proposing that we will offer a buddy system, and we'll offer a help desk for anybody who's confused. But buddy system might work for people who are not comfortable with using a computer. Someone might help you with it. Maybe you could send a check in the mail. Maybe you could pay by bank transfer. Maybe you could pay online, and those options are all available. And David's, can you extract a CSV file into XCF? Yes, you can. And make the CSV changes and import. No, you can't. First, yes to the first bit. No, no to the second bit, David. You can't import the modified file back. So you can actually take a CSV file out of UMass, modify it, but the purposes of modification might be you might want to modify a report. Or you might be taking an active member's CSV file so that you can create a subscriber list for MailChimp. There might be many reasons why you might want to do that.
Kevin?
Yes.
When you initially load your UMass, they were all loaded from CSV files. So
Correct.
Why can't you just extract the data, make the modification, and just use that function to upload again?
Because when you create the upload initially, it blows away and truncates a number of tables.
Okay.
You have to then rebuild them all.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody would ever want to go through that. You know, you've got to remember what they were too. Because the upload is a really quick way of just getting you up and started. There's not a way of repeating, no. Andrew's just put a comment in here that just editing the subscription. Oh, yes, I should mention that. Yes, when I was talking about extending the subscription, those that are familiar with the report function, subscriptions, list subscriptions, if you just extend that date out, it does not do anything for existing members. What that does is it sets a time range so that a new member gets a subscription that is between this particular date and the end date. And mostly it's usually the end date that's important. And most of us have 31st of December or somewhere in December as the end date for your annual subscription. I missed one here too from Lynn. Rollover instruction list provider is going to be used this year. Yeah, look, the instructions for rollover are basically the same. I will add some extra bits and pieces in there about UMass for members, where you can check in UMass for members, or consider, do you want to have default sorts in UMass for members set up as the default setting for day of week or category or vice versa, or course type. You might want to change your default sort options in UMass for members at different stages of the year. And critically, I would imagine, at enrolment time, you might want members to see things a little bit differently than would in the middle of the year. And you can change those, but a member can go in and then sort differently. So they can change it to their own sort. Does that make sense? And I think you need to actually play with it yourself to see, because it's very powerful. And gives you some great options for finding courses. Okay, any other questions? Okay, hopefully this has been useful.
Hi Kevin, can I ask a question?
Go for it, Peter.
You explained how Frankston's thinking of extending their active members until the end of June 2021, and you've explained how to do that in resetting member expiry date. Do new members joining between now and say the end of June next year, would you need to set up a new subscription for them in the normal way?
Yes, I would. Yes. Yeah.
So you would add a new...
It's a bit challenging setting up the algorithm for the subscriptions and the number of days in a calendar year, etc., is a little bit complex. And setting up for a half year will provide you some challenges, but it is doable.
Could you edit the present subs 2020, which runs from the 1st of January 2020 to the 31st of the 12th 2020? Could you edit that to finish on the 30th of June 2021?
Yes, you could do that. Yes. Now, yes, you can.
The issue, Kevin, is that what you've got to be careful of is that there's really only one subscription that's picked up. So if a new member joins and you've extended, you really need to edit the subscription in reports to match that, because you can't have two subscriptions running at the same time. So
I think that's what Peter's
situation.
Yeah, I think that's what Peter's talking about, Andrew. That he would extend his subscription in using the miscellaneous report, but also he would extend the subscription range out so that then a new member would still pay for a 2020 subscription. It would effectively be an extension.
That's the point. But what you can't have is you can't have a 2020 subscription and a 2021 subscription working at the same time.
You can't.
I just want to emphasize that.
Yeah, understood.
Yes,
thanks, Andrew.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, now Jill send a note. Okay. Just looking at another note here, if active member type, yep, member 2020, we'll set your reports later on. Your reports will still indicate that once you've changed the member type, you'll still indicate that this is the member type, whether it be, yes, but it will actually indicate that that particular member who's been changed to say member 2020, if you go back before they were a member 2020, it will indicate that they were a member 2020, yes. That's the disadvantage. What we're doing here is trying to come up with reasonable solutions that were never considered when UMass was created. So we're trying to come up with workarounds essentially to achieve these COVID requirements and make it as simple as easy as possible, but not everything. Go on, Andrew.
Kevin, just one thing. If you create a member 2020 type to give them a discount, you need to set in member type, you need to set it such that that option isn't available to new members. In other words, new members cannot choose member 2020.
Good point.
And there's a setting, I haven't got it in front of me, but there's a setting in member type that you've got to click, you've got to make sure is N, so it does not show in the drop down table or member options.
That's a really good point, and I missed that. I was actually discussing that with our friends from Stonington yesterday, showing them how to do it. In fact, we did it online together. Let me just, it's easier to show than it is to describe. So I'll share my screen. Hang on, I've got to find where I am. Oh dear. And share it. Okay, so I'm logged into a test system here. And if I go down to the member type, then I'll just have to move things out of the way. In the member type now, if I choose, here we go, where's our member 2020? Member 2020. If I come across to edit that, there's a new function here called admin use only. And if you tick that, it will not show up as an option for a member to choose, so that a new member joining won't see that there's an option to join as a member 2020. And in most cases, you would have set this up so that members joining can't actually join as an honorary member, for example. So in honorary member, we would also set this. No, it's not. No enrollments, admin use only. Okay. Now, when we go into UMass for members, those two functions there that I just ticked will not show in the pull down of member types. And most member types now will, for new members joining, will be something like a full member, maybe an associate member. And members can't join up as a life member or an honorary member. But you can allocate them in the background as a systems administrator or course coordinator or membership coordinator. You can allocate those particular functions to those members, and they will see it when they log in, but they can't allocate it to themselves. And that's why you would probably be normally working. But every now and then, I think we've probably found that somebody joins up as a tutor, for example, the new member. They join up. Well, that's not the normal way we join tutors, so you have to back them off a bit. Okay, any questions there now? I'll stop sharing now.
Kevin, it's Bruce Richardson from Emerald.
Yeah. Hello, Bruce.
If you use that option that you've just given us for the to change to member 2020, one assumes that if the pandemic is gone next year, we're going to have to make a global change when we roll over in 2020 to 2021, sorry, to change those member 2020s back to just normal members again, correct?
Correct. Yes, exactly right. So the function will work in the reverse as well. Yes. Yeah. Now, some U3As have got a member type of new member as distinct from an existing member. Now, at the end of the year, they would need to do the same thing. And this feature will actually allow them to do it easier than what they've been able to do it in the past as well. So it's actually been beneficial for us to have to go through this thinking process, but it's been COVID that's driven it. Okay. Okay, any other questions now? Because I think we're nearly at the end. Okay, all right. So I will stop recording in a second. I will package up this video, send you the link, send you the instruction guide. It's not unashamedly based on Whittlesey. And you can then modify it for your own purposes, because I can't guess when your enrolment dates are. So I've got specific dates that I set in there. You can then use that as, hey, we do it on this date, we will do this, we will do that then. That's a critical part of the rollover or the end of year thinking as well. When are you going to allow members to enroll? Those sorts of things. You need to think about that. So you've got nothing to do with the actual technical aspect of it. It's the principles of how your particular U3A wants to operate. Then there's and then there's the information, and then the presentations from today. Okay, so give me a day or two, and we'll get them out to you all. Now, Vicky, if you would like to send me your email, then I can add you. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. I'll say goodbye. Oh, by the way, I did mention before people, I did mention that there was going to be a data privacy and security session with a focus on UMass. It's been postponed to the 11th of November. And so we'll send invitations out for that as well. The emphasis there will be on what does UMass do to protect your privacy and members' privacy? What should you be doing to protect members' privacy, and where do your volunteers fit in from a privacy and security point of view? So we'll focus on that then.
Kevin, I think Tracy just sent out an email this morning.
Yes, yeah. Yes, but it won't have gone to everybody on this list.
Okay.
And Chris here.
All right.
Just before we go on that one, thanks, Kevin. Can I just mention that it's open to everyone, not just UMass users.
Mm-hmm.
So if I spread that around.
But we'll be focusing on UMass.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right then. Goodbye all.
Bye, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah.